Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hari Om.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्री गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेयपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला। अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जन षट्परैरहरहः पीडीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमला प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुस्तुतासुरागणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः.
Hari Om. So Bhagavan had said that the knowers or the sages, the Tadvidaha, they use the terminology Kshetram or the field for Idam Shariram, this body, and the terminology Kshetrajna for the knower of the field. And then further, he said, understand that the knower of the field in all fields, Sarva Kshetreshu, Mam is me. Mam is me. The knowledge of the field and the knower of the field, Kshetram, Kshetrajnayor Jnanam, is considered to be true knowledge by me. That which is termed as Kshetra, what it is like, Yadrik, what its modifications are, Yadvikari, what is created from it, Yatascha Yat, from what source it came from, Sachayaha, that means referring to the Kshetrajna, and what the glories are, what its glories are, which means what the glories of the Kshetrajna are. That Bhagavan said, Tat Samasena me shrinu, in essence, listen from me. And then he continued and said, this has been sung by the Rishis in various ways. Rishibhit Bahuda Geetam. In various distinctive Vedic chants. Chandobhi Vividak Pritak. And even in sutras and padas that indicate Brahman. Brahma Sutra Padaischaiva. And all of this, Bhagavan had emphasized that it is shared decisively and with reason and logic. Hetumadbihi Vinishchitaihi. So Bhagavan has actually made a big statement here by referring to the rishis and the scriptures. He says, please know that I, who is the all in all, the Kshetrajna, in all the Kshetras, will share with you in essence what has already been laid out in detail in the scriptures and has been taught by Rishis, shared by Rishis. Actually, the right way to say it would be, and has been shared by Rishis, sung by the Rishis, chanted by the Rishis, and so on. So in today's world, the so-called modern gurus, they invent various new ways, or they quote unquote invent, I should say, various new ways and actually trademark them. Even for something like Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, I know that Upasana, and I also a little bit, we had to do a lot of, search to find something which is not trademark, which is not IP, which we can use in this satsang, the initial chanting that we see. So even Bhagavan's name is, trademarked. And, the new ways, the new means, the seeker needs to be very careful when we see all this. If all this teaching did not even belong to Sri Krishna, then how can these mere mortals claim intellectual property rights? So the point is, it's fine. To an extent, it helps humanity. So please understand that I'm not criticizing them. But now we have reached a stage in the Bhagavad Gita where Bhagavan is talking about an evolved seeker, not an anadi who is just trying to become spiritual, not someone who is blindly faithful to various practices and trademarks that are being registered all over. We are talking about an evolved seeker. That evolved seeker needs to be careful. We must remember that all of these are placed within the samsaric field, the kshetra, as much as any other field of play in the samsaric. People go to the Auli ranges for skiing, or they'll go to the Goa beaches for a vacation, or they'll go to a trip in Las Vegas. Okay, all of these are to get joy, temporary satisfaction. Similarly, these activities also will provide joy up to a point in time. They are not the all-in-all solution, which is what Bhagavan is trying to teach us. As I was writing this, in preparation for this satsang, I was witnessing some of the Mahashivratri celebrations that were going on. And what struck me was, there's so much of pomp and show. It's almost like, what is it called? These guys do, these, what do they call it? I'm forgetting the name for it, the celebration, promotions, right? When you have a big event and all that, you do promotions, celebrations, film stars, people who brand ambassadors. It's actually over the counter, it's over the brim. It goes over the brim. Anyway, I don't want to be critical. It is useful up to a point in time, but every seeker must realize that one needs to graduate, get out of that, and get into what Bhagavan is trying to teach. And as long as we live by the principles stated by Sri Krishna, like once I think one of you, Radhika, asked, right? So many sadhanas, what do I do? Of course, anything in life, anything to achieve, we have to practice. Whatever. Even a student who is in class has to practice to be able to clear the examination or test, or to learn the subject. Why clear the examination or a test is the result. To become a learned person in that subject of pursuit, you have to practice. So when we practice these various sadhanas, we inculcate the various sadhanas and the qualities that Bhagavan has been repeatedly teaching us through the Bhagavad Gita, we can definitely be deeply satisfied that we are leading a rightful spiritual life. And anything that can be a scaffolding for us to get here, please use it. But scaffoldings are meant to be removed. So this is actually a big statement. Bhagavan very politely says, he is not saying, I'm telling you, I'm teaching you, this is my trademark, you'll use it only with Sri Krishna's stamp. Nothing. That's the beauty of Sanatana Dharma. He is saying, what I'm going to tell you in essence has been shared already in detail, has been sung, has been chanted, and has been written, and all of that. So now let's get ready for some more directives from Bhagavan himself, just like Arjuna. We will recite verses 5 and 6 together.
Mahabhutanyahangkarah
Mahabhutanyahankarah
Buddhiravyaktameva cha
Buddhiravyaktameva cha
Indriyani dashaikam cha
Indriyani dashaikam cha
Panchachendriya gocharaha
Panchachendriya gocharaha
Ichha dvesha sukham dukkham
Ichha dvesha sukham dukkham
Sangatascetanadritihi
Sangatascetanadritihi
Etat kshetram samasena
Etat kshetram samasena
Savikaram udahratam
Savikaram udahritam
Mahabhutanyahangkarah Buddhiravyaktameva cha Indriyani dashaikam cha Panchachendriya gocharaha Ichha dvesha sukham dukkham Sangatascetanadritihi Etat kshetram samasena Savikaram udahratam.
So Bhagavan says, Etat kshetram samasena savikaram udahritam. So etad, this, samasena, in essence, kshetram is the field. Savikaram, with modifications, udahritam, has been described with examples. And what is this? He says, Mahabhutani, the great elements. Ahankaraha, egoism. Buddhihi, intellect. Avyaktam, that which is unmanifest, the not manifest. And cha, eva, also. Indriyani dashaikam cha, the 10 senses and the one. We'll come to what this and the one is. Cha, and Indriya gocharaha, pancha indriya gocharaha, the 5 objects of the senses. Ichha, and then continuing, ichha, desire. Dveshaha, hatred. Sukham, pleasure. Dukkham, pain or sorrow. Sangataha, the aggregate, the sangaha, the aggregate. Chetana, sentience or intelligence. Dhritihi, fortitude. All of these. So Bhagavan says the great elements, egoism, intellect, and the unmanifested, the Mula Prakriti, the 10 senses and the one, and the 5 objects of the senses. Desire, continuing, desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, the aggregate body, sentiency, fortitude. This in essence is the Kshetra. With modifications has been described with examples. So we have to be careful in this. When we say, 5 objects of the senses, desire. So that doesn't mean one of the objects, desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, these are objects of the senses. No. 5 objects of the senses and continuing, desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, those are different aspects. So Mahabhutani, that is the first one. The great elements. What are the great elements? We have read it in science also. Space, air, fire, water and earth. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi. These are the rudimentary elements or the Tanmatra. We have studied all this in chapter 7 also. And these rudimentary elements of the Tanmatra combine to form the gross elements which can be perceived, which are perceptible. For example, my body is perceptible and my body has all these 5 elements. All of our bodies have all these 5 elements. In their subtle state, they permeate the whole, the entire universe. And hence, they are called great elements. The 5 great elements. Then Bhagavan says, Ahankaraha, egoism. The self which is within us that projects the non-self. The entire world is actually a projection of the self. And then not only does it project the non-self, it identifies with the non-self. So the pure consciousness, when it thinks of itself as the material consciousness, that is egoism. This then leads to the sense of I and my. What is aham and mama? I, the individual, and my, what belongs to this individual. And this sense then perceives the entire world. And based on that perception, based on the way the entire world deals with this individual and what belongs to this individual, either this individual enjoys the world or suffers the world. This is what we see all around us, right? So essentially, the self projects the non-self, and that is the ego. And this material consciousness that has been identified with by the pure consciousness then gives this sense of this is me and this is mine. And with this aspect of me and mine, we either enjoy this world or suffer this. Then Bhagavan says buddhihi, the faculty of inquiry and judgment, which is the intellect. That is buddhi. Then he says avyakta, the unmanifest or the mula prakriti. That's called the avyakta. That which is in the unmodified state. So in chapter 7, Bhagavan had said that all pure elements, because of which the elements or whatever we see is what it is. So water, the pureness which makes the water what it is, the water. the pureness that makes the fire what it is, the fire. These aspects, he says, that is me. That is him, Bhagwan. So the supreme functioning through the Mula Prakriti, which is Maya, which is nothing but Maya. When the supreme is functioning through Maya, that supreme is the creator of this entire universe. We have studied all of this earlier in chapter 7. Just a quick revision when Bhagwan is touching upon this, right? The same supreme, when functioning through the layers of inherent tendencies that we have, our vasanas, in the individual, in all of us, that supreme becomes the creator of the ego, the ahankara. Indriyani dashaikam. Dasha indriyas, dasha indriyani and ekam. So the dasha indriyani are the 10 faculties of perception and action. And the ekam refers to the mind. So what are the 5 faculties or the 10 faculties? The 5 faculties of perception are the jnanendriyas. They are the shrota tattva, which are the hearing elements or the ears. The twak tattva, the touching elements of the skin. Chakshu tattva, the seeing elements, which is the eyes. The rasana tattva, the tasting elements of the tongue. And the gandha tattva, the smelling elements, which is the nose. And then the 5 faculties of actions are the karmendriyas. And they are the vak tattva, which is the speech elements or the voice box. The pani tattva, which is the grasping elements or the hands. The pada tattva, the walking elements or the legs. The payu tattva, the excretory elements or the excretory system. Excretion elements and the excretory system. And the upastha tattva, the procreation elements or the reproductive system. And the mind is the faculty. So these are the perception elements and the propagating elements. Jnanendriyas and the karmendriyas. And the mind is that faculty which is the seat for feelings and emotions. And it is the only faculty that receives all of the stimuli that come from the jnanendriyas and derives sense of them. Converts the stimuli into some kind of a language which makes sense. And then it is the only faculty that transmits, expresses, and sends response to the outer world. The one, ekam, the mind. Then Bhagavan says, pancha chendriya gocharaha. These are the aspects that are perceived by the senses. So the sense objects, the vishayas. Each sense organ can only perceive one sense object. None of the sense organs can perceive the sense object that is perceived by the other. Basically, the eyes can only perceive form or rupa. The ears can perceive only the sound, shabda. The nose can perceive only the smell, gandha. The tongue can only taste, rasa. And the skin can only touch, sparsha. They cannot do each other's work. And the 24 factors enumerated so far. So these are 24 factors. 5 great elements: the egoism, intellect, the unmanifested, the 10 sense organs, the mind, and the 5 sense objects. These 24 are described in chapter 7 as the Ashtada Prakriti. When Bhagavan was teaching us about the Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti, he said, these are my 8-fold properties, my 8-fold Prakriti. That's what Bhagavan had said. And when he said 8-fold, he referred to all this 24. Multifold. There the 8-fold stood for multifold. And here he is touching upon them again when he is teaching us about the Kshetragya and the Kshetra. Kshetragya Para Prakriti, Kshetra Apara Prakriti. And this is beautiful actually, because this is one of the most scientific explanations for creation itself. And we had seen this earlier, but it is worth going through once again. See, Prakriti or Maya, from that comes the Mahat or Buddhi. From the Buddhi comes the Ahankara. And all of these, Prakriti, Mahat and Ahankara, they are threefold in terms of their nature. And we'll come to that also in the next chapter. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So Ahankara has Sattva Ahankara, Rajas Ahankara and Tamas Ahankara. The Jnanendriyas, the faculties of sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, those 5 Jnanendriyas, they come from the Sattva Ahankara. The faculties of grasping, locomotion, speech, excretion and reproduction, the Karmendriyas, they come from the Rajas Ahankara. The elements in their subtle form are the Tanmatras. They come from Tamas Ahankara. Elements in the gross forms are a mixture, have an admixture of other forms also. Elements in their subtle form are absolutely pure. The original pure aspect, which Bhagavan said is me, Bhagavan himself. Those are the Tanmatras. The Manas or mind comes from the Sattva and Rajas Ahankara. And it then controls the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. Like we said earlier, the Manas is the only faculty which perceives, makes sense out of what it's perceived, and then transmits back. So it controls the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas. And from the Tanmatras come the great elements, the Pancha Mahabhuta. The Akasha, space, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, Jala, water and Prithvi, earth. So once the subtle elements become gross, then they start manifesting their properties. So when the subtle earth becomes gross, then it starts manifesting the smell aspect. So these are then referred to as the Panchachendriya Gocharaha. So space or Akasha comes out as sound, air or Vayu as touch, fire or Agni as sight, water or Jala as taste, and Prithvi or earth as smell. And not only all of these 24 elements constitute this entire world of objects. So this entire world, whatever we see around us, is constituted of these 24 elements. Even their modifications are included in the term Kshetra. So the Kshetra includes all these 24 elements and also their vikaras, the modifications. As Bhagavan puts it, Savikaram, Vikara Sahita, Savikaram. And what are those? Ichha, desire. Desire is a form of perception that seeks reinforcement, repetition, again and again. Repetition of contact with what? Repetition or reinforcement of what? The objects that are agreeable. So the sense objects that are agreeable, we want them again and again and again. And that modification is Ichha. Dvesha or hatred or hate is a state that seeks to avoid or even harm with revulsion, with a sense of repulsion, the objects that are disagreeable. Sukham, Dukkham, similarly, okay? Objects that are agreeable, Sukh, happy. Objects that are disagreeable, Dukkham, sorrow. Then Bhagavan says, Sanghataha. Sanghataha refers to the entire assemblage of various parts of the body, the aggregate. Like a machine has parts, the human body is a marvelous organic machine. See, I got this beautiful insight thanks to my father into this small little machine called the pacemaker. And nowadays you have this leadless pacemaker. So he got one installed day before yesterday or 2 days ago. Little thing, it's like a capsule, like one of those vitamin capsules, the larger ones, it's like that. Okay, small little thing. And that small little thing has so many parts. So, it has a part into which, so it's inserted through a tube into the heart, deep inside the heart, right? So, once it goes through the tube, it is pushed through the tube, and there is a part on the behind which lets go of the tube, the bearer of that pacemaker. And then there is another part which has clips which eject out, like out there, and all this is controlled by the doctor. It kind of comes out. Before that, you don't see the clips. They're inside. Once it goes into the heart, the clip, because clip comes out. Because those clips can tear something else before going, right? Maybe even the tube that it's carrying. So once it goes in and once it is in position, you trigger the clip and it comes out and attaches itself to where the doctor wants it to attach. Beautiful, marvelous engine with parts. So Bhagavan, when he says Sangataha, he is referring to all the minute little parts of the human body, every single cell, and everything else that is part of the human body. And then Chetana, that which gives sentience to all these parts. Because without that sentience, these are all dead. Like this pacemaker, it's there, lying there like a device which is dead device. But once it goes in and then it is triggered, then it actually helps the heart beat. So the function of a pacemaker is essentially to regulate heartbeat, the pace of the beat of the heart. So when the pace of the heartbeat goes below a particular point, it triggers and makes it beat faster. Because if it goes below a certain level, then it stops beating, right? So it triggers that beat. So it's like a UPS. It doesn't function all the time. So it intelligently finds out when that, like a UPS knows that the current has gone and triggers the backup current. Similarly, this pacemaker knows that the heartbeat has gone below a particular level and triggers a shock to trigger the heart to beat faster. So like that sentiency which makes it happen. Below that, lying on the operation theater before or in the dabba in which the package in which came, it was an insentient element. This Chetana makes the body sentience, the intelligence, the sentiency that gives the power to reveal and interpret. It's a wonderful power that we have. I mean, this human body is the most fantastic. I mean, you can marvel at some little thing like a pacemaker. Just look at this, what Bhagavan has made this machine. Fantastic. And kudos to scientists who have, made it better through science. Dhritihi. Dhritihi is firmness and the capacity to be fit and hold on. And this is a beautiful faculty, beautiful aspect too. When there is lack of activity, suppose nothing is happening, what can happen? The body will become lazy, indolent, and it has risk of dying also. Just doing nothing with the body, just lying down, the body will die in due course. That indolence will set in. So Dhriti makes sure that that does not happen. It helps the body stay active. It helps the body stay fit and not become indolent. That is Dhriti. And in the face of challenges, this Dhriti gives the body the capacity to hold on, not succumb. Etat Kshetram Samasena. This, in essence, is Kshetra. See how beautiful Bhagavan has captured, and our scriptures have captured the essential aspects, the 24 elements which form the, the inert aspect, and then the application of those, which help us function the way we function. So Bhagavan had said that he will explain the Kshetra in essence in terms of what it is like, the Yadrik, which are the 24 aspects that he explained, and what its modifications are, the Yadvikari. Then he also said the Yadvikari are the last Icha, Dvesha, Sukham, Dukkham, Sangataha, Chetana, Dhriti. These two he has touched upon. He had also said he will teach us about Yatascha Yat. Yatascha Yat is what this Kshetra creates. What comes from this Kshetra, he will explain that. And Sachayah, where it came from, the Kshetrajna. And also the glorifications of the Kshetrajna. Now he has covered two, Yadrik and Yadvikari. Those are the two he has covered. And from here, in order to help us learn better, he wants to pause on the Yatascha Yat aspect of Kshetra, and the Sachayaha aspect of Kshetra. And he wants to go to the Kshetrajna. We will see, why he does that, because it obviously helps us understand better. But to understand the Kshetrajna is also very difficult. It's not an easy thing to understand the Kshetrajna. And Bhagavan says, in order to comprehend and in order to understand the Kshetrajna, you need to prepare your mind and intellect. The mind and intellect have to be prepared. And this preparation or the capability for the mind and intellect is the Chitta Shuddhi and the Chitta Ekagratha. Chitta Shuddhi, the purity of the mind, and Chitta Ekagratha, the ability to focus, concentrate, single pointed focus. Single pointed focus will then lead to single pointed devotion. So thus, in order to make us ready to receive the wisdom, he lists out 20 qualities. So 20 more added to the list. I will not make them into sadhanas, by the way. These are 20 qualities that are a must. There's no practicing them. You have to have them, period. No question. If you want to be a seeker at that level, they must be developed. Without developing these, a seeker will not be able to even understand Kshetrajna, let alone comprehend the Kshetrajna or attain the Kshetrajna. And these are covered in the next 5 verses, which we shall take up in this satsang. These are attributes of the mind and intellect. The moral attitudes of the mind and intellect, ethical principles that the mind and intellect should follow, and essential prerequisites for a seeker to understand and experience the Kshetrajna. And the Kshetrajna of all the Kshetras also, which is nothing but Bhagavan. So this Bhagavad Gita is beautiful. It's the most practical textbook that helps us, that tells us this is how you have to live. Not only every time Bhagavan gives us, some kind of a theory, he gives us practical tips to achieve that theory. That is the beauty of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And now he will give us these 20 qualities that any seeker at that level has no choice but to inculcate. We'll go, you can actually read all 5 at the same time, but for our benefit, let us go through verse by verse. So we go to verse 7.
Amanitvamadam vitvam.
Amanitvamadam vitvam.
Ahimsa shantirarjavam.
Ahimsa kshantirarjavam.
Acharyupasanam shaucham.
Acharyopasanam shaucham.
Stairyamaatma vinigraha.
Stairyamaatma vinigraha.
Amanitvamadam vitvam. Ahimsa shantirarjavam. Acharyupasanam shaucham. Stairyamaatma vinigraha.
The first 3 qualities are presented as contrary to what they imply. Amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa. Contrary to manitvam, dambitvam, himsa. So, amanitvam is humility, as a contrast to self-pride, which is manitvam. So, not indulging in self-pride, being humble. That is a must. Adambitvam, not being pretentious. Dambitvam means being pretentious. Adambitvam, modesty, being modest, is a must. Ahimsa. Himsa means causing grief or harm to other beings and objects. Ahimsa means non-injury, is a must. Shanti, forbearance. When there is sufficient reason to get agitated, not getting agitated. That's really, really difficult. Not only that, channelizing. One way to practice that is to channelize the energy in the right direction. In the army, we say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So when you channelize the energies in the right direction, it then leads to forbearance. Arjvam, uprightness, straightforwardness, not being manipulative or devious. This is also a must. Arjuna is well known for this nature. Acharyo Pasanam, approaching a bona fide spiritual teacher and submitting with the intent of learning. Guru Upasadana. See, in some places, this aspect is presented as service to the teacher. That's okay. That's fine. Absolutely, if we find a nice guru who is worthy of service, we must serve that guru. But I fundamentally, I'm against Guru Parampara. Okay, so I like the explanation of approaching. Guru Upasadana is so much more perfect, right? When I want to learn something, I need to learn it from a teacher that understands it better than me. Once I've understood it, then I go to the next level. Then I find a teacher who understands the next level better than me. Then I go to the next level. So I got to keep progressing. And to keep progressing, I have to let go of the teacher also. See, for example, this Dr. Naveen Chandra, who was the cardiosurgeon who was my father's cardiologist. He highly accomplished, fantastic guy. I'm a big fan of him and I've also become a good friend. But he has to install this what is it called? Not tubeless, leadless pacemaker. So leadless pacemaker, he needs to get an expert. So he went and got this doctor called Dr. Devendra Chadda. So the actual process was done by some other doctor. Had it been an angioplasty or a bypass or something, Dr. Naveen Chandra would have done. But this particular leadless pacemaker installation, maybe over a period of time as he learns, he will let go of Naveen Chandra. Sorry, he'll let go of Dr. Devendra Chadda and he will install it himself. If he doesn't let go of Dr. Devendra Chadda, then he's not progressing. So you have to let go. So you have to approach the Guru when required, submit to the Guru when you are approaching the Guru, but finally let go of that Guru. Approaching the right teacher with a submissive attitude. Shaucham, purity. We saw this earlier also as one of the sadhanas. Internal as well as external is a must. Sthiryam, steadfastness. Unswavering perseverance. Consistency of purpose. Not wavering in that pursuit. Being firm and consistent in that pursuit. Steadfast, sthiryam is a must. Atma vinigraha, self-control. Mastery over the body, mind and intellect. Dispassion towards objects which are outside that attract the senses. Opposite of self-indulgence. And then continuing, Bhagavan says,
Indriyarteshu vairagyam.
Indriyarteshu vairagyam.
Anahankara evacha.
Anahankara evacha.
Janma mrityu jara vyadhi. Dukkha doshanu darshanam.
Janma mrityu jara vyadhi. Dukkha doshanu darshanam.
Indriyarteshu vairagyam. Anahankara evacha. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi. Dukkha doshanu darshanam.
Vairagyam. Vairagyam means dispassion. Dispassion toward indriyarteshu, the sense objects. Anahankaraha, no ego, no head weight. And eva also, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi. Janma, birth, mrityu, death, jara, old age, vyadi, disease. So for this, what does Bhagavan says? He says, doshanu darshanam. The perception, darshanam, perception, awareness of. Doshaha, anudarshanam, anudarshanam, perception, awareness. Darshanam is to see. Anudarshanam is to perceive, being aware. Darshanam to see, anudarshanam to be aware, to become aware, to cognize what is seen, to understand what is seen. What, understand what, be aware of what? The doshas, the faults. The faults of what? Janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha. These 5 elements. Janma, birth, mrityu, death, jara, old age, vyadi, disease, and dukkha. Dukkha because dukkha is a result of these four. Dukkha is a result of janma, dukkha is a result of mrityu, dukkha is a result of jara, dukkha is a result of vyadhi. So dispassion towards the sense objects, no ego, and also being aware of the inherent faults in birth, death, old age, disease, and so on. So it is quite evident that human beings evolve. They evolve from a lower strata to a higher and higher and higher strata. We have seen Darwin's theory of evolution, right? Now, from this evolution perspective, the human body is the best in terms of body. It's complete. Evolution is done. Human body is the best achieved. Maybe in future something else will come. We'll wait for that. But for the last so many centuries, the human body is the pinnacle of evolution of bodies. But the human mind intellect, that has to go through tremendous evolution. It still has a long way to go for most of human beings. So this evolution of the human mind and intellect happens through dispassion towards external objects. What do the external objects do? They provide sense gratification. We feel very happy when we like something. We feel very sad when we don't like something. We just saw that earlier today itself, right? So this does not mean, see, dispassion towards external objects that provide sensual gratification does not mean running away from them. No, absolutely not. But not becoming overly dependent on them, not getting addicted to them. Because over-dependence, addiction to sense objects will then do what? This higher evolved person, human being, will become a slave of the lower evolved substance, or another person or whoever it may be that is lesser evolved. So becoming a slave, you're having progressed and then becoming a slave of something which has not progressed to that extent. That is what will happen. So that's why dispassion towards external objects that give sensual gratification. This is also connected deeply to the sense of individuality, to the ego. Why? Because based on that level of gratification, the ego either feels great, aha, thank you very much, very high, or it feels low. Higher the level of gratification, you develop a sense of high. Lower the level of gratification, you are low, demoralized, what's it called? Depressed. So it's also connected to the sense of individuality. Now, bodily existence is necessarily associated with birth, with death, with birth, death, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, old age and disease. Birth, death, old age and disease. And sorrow comes out of all these four. Constantly being aware of the flaw, the inherent flaw in these five elements. Constantly being aware of the faults that are a nature of these five. Not only makes the seeker transcend these, but also makes the seeker seek out for the higher. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had said, and I quote, "The human grows in devotion to the Lord in direct proportion to the detachment from the objects." So Bhagavan is here saying that detachment from sense objects is a must. Detachment does not mean running away. Detachment means controlling them, having the reins in your hands, rather than becoming a slave of them. And then Bhagavan continues.
Asaktirana Vishwangaha
Asaktirana Bhishvangaha
Putradhara Grihadishu
Putradara Grihadishu
Nityam cha samachittatvam
Nityam samachittatvam
Ishtanishtu papattishu
Ishtanishtopapatishu
Asaktirana Vishwangaha Putradhara Grihadishu Nityam cha samachittatvam Ishtanishtu papattishu.
Now he gets to the next step in the ladder. Anabhishwangaha, no identification. Asaktihi, no attachment. No identification with the sense of I, no attachment to the sense of my. And what is this? Putra, Dara, Grihadishu. Putra, child. Dara, spouse. Griha, house. Adishu, etc. And then he says, and cha, nityam, constant. Samachittatvam, equipoise of the mind and intellect. And constant equipoise of the mind and intellect when? Ishta nishto papattishu, on the attainment of the desirable and the undesirable. What is ishta? What is anishta? When you get that, whatever it may be, at that time, maintaining equipoise, constant equipoise of the mind intellect. Non-identification with the sense of I, no attachment to the sense of my, with child, with spouse, with house, etc. And constant equipoise of mind intellect on attainment of the desirable and the undesirable. So attachment is of two kinds: identification with the sense of I and identification with the sense of my. And when this becomes extreme, when this goes beyond this identification, when it becomes deep, extremely deep, it is called attachment. Excessive identification with the child, with the spouse, with the house, and Bhagavan takes everything else, other belongings, other people, whatever or whoever it may be, Adishu, makes one believe that that aspect that you are identifying to or attached to is me. See, when there is extreme love, then you don't see any difference between you and the object of love, whatever it may be. If you love coffee, coffee and you are the same. If you love another person, you and the other person are the same. So the sense of I and the self and the other person become one. That must be eliminated by discrimination, by the ability to distinguish, viveka. So the right attitude, therefore, is to view everything as a belonging of Bhagavan, not as I and mine. Once we see everything as Bhagavan's, then it is easy to not get too attached, because anyway it is Bhagavan's. When we lose that thing or that person, he's gone back to Bhagavan, or she's gone back to Bhagavan, or it has gone back to Bhagavan, which is where it, she, he belonged anyway. So very interesting anecdote. Assuming that he would oppose payment of taxes to the Roman Empire, Jesus was asked and questioned and grilled about it. Jesus' response was, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. While the questioners were very happy because they thought Jesus is saying the tax belongs to Caesar. What is Jesus actually saying here? He's saying that everything is God's. And the mind intellect being ever equipoised, whether you get what is desired or what is, when the happenings, you are not wishing for it, but the happenings are either desirable or undesirable. So these are must-haves as per Bhagavan. And then he continues.
Mai chananya yogena bhaktiravya vicharini vivikta desha sevitvam aratirjana samsadi Mai chananya yogena bhaktiravya vicharini vivikta desha sevitvam aratirjana samsadi.
So Bhagavan is continuing, cha and avyabhicharini, unswivering, unshakable. What? Bhaktihi, devotion. Mai, to me. By yoga, yogena, by the yoga, ananya, of none another. Remember, Ananya Bhakti, that kind of, that yoga. Sevitvam, resorting to. Vivikta, solitary, desha, places. Aratir, distate. Aratir, aratihi, aratihi, ratihi is taste. Aratihi is distaste. For what? For Jana Samsiddhi, boisterous gathering of people. Unswavering devotion to me alone through yoga of Ananya Bhakti, seeking, resorting to solitary places, and a distaste of boisterous crowds, or distaste for boisterous crowds. So like I said earlier, the Bhagavad Gita is actually indeed the most practical of textbooks on self-discovery, you know. So practicing various techniques or sadhanas that Bhagavan has been teaching till now, right? Inculcating the qualities that he has prescribed, Bhagavan has prescribed, all through the Bhagavad Gita, that essentially ensures effectiveness. Effectiveness means doing the right thing, and efficiency, doing it right. Doing the right thing and doing it right. If we do that in life, a lot of problems will go away. And when we do it, when we have effectiveness and efficiency, that time energy is conserved. And in this verse, see, Bhagavan has till now given us 15 qualities. Okay. And in this verse, he is telling us those 15, you know, if we follow that, all of them, okay, each one of them is a must. So if we follow those 15, then we'll conserve a lot of energy. If we are in this pursuit, what to do with that energy? That is covered in this verse. So he says that this seeker who has conserved this energy practices constant devotion to Bhagavan. And why does the seeker do that? Because this is the pursuit that interests the seeker. Wants to do this. More than anything else, this is what is interesting. Seeking places that are solitary. Why? Because solitary places are peaceful and are conducive to Ananya Bhakti, are conducive to meditation, and shying away from groups of boisterous people. In the initial stages, this seeker seeks the company of holy people, Satsang. But in the advanced stages, severance from those also. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had said, and I quote, "The moth abandons darkness and rushes towards the light of the Lamb. Even so, the devotee is ever intent on the Lord." Now, let's see what this means, okay? Because this is a tough one, right? And this could discourage one from being spiritual. What is this? You know, who wants to be like this? You know? So, in any field of pursuit, be it sports, be it science, be it art, be it anything, be it the modern corporate world of working, be it a student, one who attains an intense and high level of pursuit. We are talking about super achievers, the gems, the creme de la creme, right? So one who attains a very high level of pursuit, you will see that person is fairly isolated. Sometimes they are called snob. ये तो ऐसा ही है, बहुत अपने आप को समझता है. No, that's not really true. In fact, these people are most humble, by the way. We may assume that they are snobs. That's not true at all. They are not snobs. It's just that this individual has basically reached a level of devotion to this particular pursuit, which others don't understand. They don't get it. And this person is deeply attracted to it, gets more and more and more and more drawn into it. And you see this everywhere. See, one of the most base professions is considered to be the movie stars, right? You look at them. The excellent movie stars, Amitabh Bachchan, classic example. He'll act till he dies. The entire life acting, twilight of their lives. Look at cricketers. You know, they obviously cannot play till they die, right? Not their twilight. They have a twilight of the career. Whereas some of these movie stars don't have twilight of career. It's the twilight of career and twilight of life is the same. They go on and on and on and on. Scientists, they go on and on and on and on. till the end of their lives. They keep working. There's no retirement. See, retirement from professional job, money earning, that is different. But their mind and intellect is ever focused till they can, physically, bodily, humanly can. So these cricketers do not play, but they then get into coaching, commentary, those kind of things. They typically do not fit into, quote unquote, I'll say that, right? They do not fit into other crowds of people. They seek their own solace in their own pursuit. Highest of achievers. It is no different for a spiritual aspirant or for spiritual achievers. So these are now spiritual achievers. Bhagavan has got to that stage of spiritual achievers. After some time and a lot of progress, they seek solitude to dwell deeper and deeper and deeper into this Kshetra. And Bhagavan continues.
Adhyatma jnana nityatvam.
Adhyatma jnana nityatvam.
Tattva jnanartha darshanam.
Tattva jnanartha darshanam.
Etat jnanamiti proktam.
Etat jnanamiti proktam.
Ajnanam yadatonyata.
Ajnanam yadatonyatha.
Adhyatma jnana nityatvam. Tattva jnanartha darshanam. Etat jnanamiti proktam. Ajnanam yadatonyata.
Nityatvam, steadfastness, firmness. In what? Adhyatma jnana. Steadfastness, firmness in self-knowledge. Adhyatma jnana, self-knowledge. Darshanam, visioning, seeing. What? The artha. Artha tattva jnana. Visioning, seeing the artha, the result. Artha means result of tattva jnana, the knowledge of reality. So firmness in self-knowledge and seeing the result, visioning the result of that knowledge of reality. And Bhagavan says, etad, all this, etad. Iti is declared proktam jnanam as knowledge. All of this is declared as knowledge. And he says, what is yad? That which is anyatha, contrary, ato, to this, is ajnanam, ignorance. Firmness in knowledge, vision of the result of the knowledge of reality, all of this, not these two, firmness and vision of the result, all 20 Bhagavan is referring to. Etad is all this, all 20 qualities is declared as knowledge. And what is contrary or different is ignorance. All the 20 qualities. Now it's all time, so we won't revise, but I'll encourage you to go back and go through each of these 20. Okay. So all of them are basically dispositions, 20 in number. And they have been elaborated from verse 7 to verse 11. And they contribute jointly to the development of wisdom. And this wisdom is nothing but that intuitive faculty that leads to realization of Brahman, of the Kshetrajna. Bhagavan calls these jnana, and whatever is contrary to these he calls as ajnana. And these are 20 in number. All of them together and jointly. We must see, for example, if you see this bird, the kingfisher or eagle, you know, it's coming down to catch a fish. Okay. So first of all, it's flying at an immense altitude, really, really high. And let's assume there is turbulence in the air. You know, when you see there's turbulence, the plane gets thrown about. Sometimes you see these birds also get thrown about. Now, in that turbulent air, it has to fly. While flying, it has to spot the fish, which it has to eat. While flying and managing the turbulence and keeping focus on the fish, it has to gate that body that will allow it to dive, that pose that like skydivers that will allow it to dive. And then it has to choose the right time to dive. Everything has to happen together. And then it has to dive. And then it has to get to the right spot, firmly on target, catch, and then hold on go up, fly again, okay, and go to a safe spot so that it gets its meal. Everything has to have, there's no choice. You can't do sequentially this and that. No, can't get mixed up. Nothing doing. That's how life is. We human beings, because of our brilliant intellect, we give excuses. They're all excuses. So there is all these 20 qualities are a must. And they help us fine-tune our lives to spiritual pursuit. Like we fine-tune a radio set or that telescope or a microscope. So it will get hazy initially, and then it will be clear, and then it gets sharp, extremely sharp. That developing that sharpness where there is no disturbance. Once the radio is fine-tuned, there is no external disturbance. Otherwise, there'll be a hiss, there'll be some kind of up and down, change in frequency, modulation, blah, blah, blah. All that will be there. So that sharpness will come when these 20 qualities are developed. And after giving these 20, listing out for us to practice, Bhagavan says, and also talking about them as jnana, Bhagavan now says he will declare that which ought to be understood. Jnayam. So, knowing this jnana, what do you understand? Jnayam. See, to climb a mountain, to run a marathon, to play a game, one has to be fit. Without fitness, you cannot do. To write an exam, a student has to cover the syllabus, to study the syllabus. Without studying the syllabus, you cannot enter the exam also. This fitness or this study is the knowledge. And what happens after climbing the mountain or writing the exam is the jnayam. That is the result of that knowledge. So Bhagavan says now that what ought to be understood with that knowledge, I will explain. With this knowledge, what is the wisdom that you acquire? That is the knowledge. With the fitness, knowledge of fitness, you acquire the aspect of climbing the mountain, the wisdom of climbing the mountain, having completed it. That is jnayam. And Bhagavan says he will tell us what jnayam is. That we will see. That is nothing but the Kshetrajna. We will see in the what has to be understood with this 20, which we must have. What will be understood? The Kshetrajna will be understood with this. That we will see in the next satsang. Thank you. Hari Om, Shri Krishna.
We'll repeat today's verses. Chapter 13, verses 5 to 12. Mahabhutanyahankaraha buddhiravyaktameva cha indriyani dashaikam cha panchachendriya gocharaha ichcha dvesha sukham dukkham sangadaschetana etat kshetram samasena savikaramudahritam amanitvamadambitvam ahimsa shantirajyavam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam matma vinigraha indriyarteshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam asaktirana vishwangaha putradhara grihadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtupapattishu mai chananya yogena bhaktiravyabicharini viviktadeshasi vitvam aratirjana samsati adhyatma jnana nityatvam tatvajnanartha darshanam etajnanamiti proktam ajnanam yadatunyata om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya om purnamada purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Any thoughts, comments, or questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, Amrita has a question.
So you said that when
Come closer, no?
is it better?
Come here.
So you basically said that when you gain all the knowledge that you can from a certain teacher, then you basically gain all that knowledge that you have, and then you move on to the next level by letting go of that teacher. So does that mean that Arjuna, and by extension us, the learners, gain all the knowledge we can from Bhagwan and then eventually let go?
That's what I wanted to ask. Guru Parama is a must in our culture. You can't say you don't believe in Guru Parama. That's the greatest.
Can I answer this question?
Yes, please, Rama.
Yeah, because see, when we are going to a KG class, we think the KG teacher, she is all the world, she knows everything. Then we go into the first standard. Then, in fact, and by the time we reach and we become we do a master's or we become a PhD, we don't disrespect our first standard teacher. We may be much more better, cleverer than her. So I think when we move from one guru to the other guru, it is the same thing. We don't disrespect the first guru. We respect him for what knowledge he instilled in us when we go to the next stage. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Excellent question, actually. A really fantastic question by Amrita. Yeah, what Rama is saying is perfect in terms of, when you go from one level to other, you let go of the previous level teacher, respect, absolutely, and then continue, progress. To your specific question, do you let go of Sri Krishna? Sri Krishna is Kshetra, no? Sri Krishna is Avatara. Sri Krishna is also an aspect of Maya of the Bhagavan who is Avyakta. So the unmanifest. When the unmanifest Supreme functions through Maya, all of creation happens. And this Sri Krishna, he is part of this creation. He was or continues to be part of this creation, right? So ultimately, as per our scriptures, yes, you let go of that Sri Krishna and go to that Para Prakriti. That is what.
That means we leave the manifest Krishna and go to the unmanifest Krishna.
You leave the, yes, exactly. Yes. So yes, that's what it is.
I have a question. This Mahat,
Yes.
it is the first evolute of Prakriti. Mahat.
Can you repeat that? It kind of
The Mahat, you explained about Mahat today in some form. It is the first evolute of the Mula Prakriti. So, is it an attribute of the Mula Prakriti or what exactly is? Because Mahat I'm never able to understand what exactly it is.
No, it comes from. It is a result. Like Bhagavan says, right, that he will teach us what the Kshetra came from where, right? Similarly, the Buddhi or Mahat is nothing but the Buddhi. It comes from the Prakriti, Maya. And Ahankara comes from Buddhi. So it's a derivative, not an attribute.
And where does, and this is always confusing me, where does the mind come from? It is, we generally say it's with the brain, but it is abstract. Brain is concrete. We know where the brain is. So where is it's very subtle. Mind is it all over the body or is it in a particular place?
It comes from the ego, the sattvic ego and the rajasic ego. The sattva ahankara and the rajasic ahankara, rajas ahankara. That's where the mind comes from. And then it controls the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas.
So that means it travels everywhere around. It is so subtle that it can travel around the body.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Because recently there was some scientists always believe the brain and the mind are in the same place. Recently there was some seminar or something where some of the scientists said, no, it's not true. The mind is not in the brain. So,
sure, the brain is an organ which is supposed to house the intellect, the buddhi. The mind definitely is something that is beyond the brain. It is in the brain also, but it is beyond the brain. It is a product of the ego. It is more subtle, and it controls all the faculties. But all these are, I mean, there'll be another viewpoint, so can be debated for long. But if we understand the crux of it, how this creation aspect comes through, and how we can utilize this to be able to understand the Kshetra and then comprehend the Kshetrajna, I think that is the bigger goal here. It's like saying, yeah, obviously the backhand, the forehand, we can discuss and debate a lot about backhand, forehand, and how, the shot is different or the same, or, the top spin is the different or the same, or the other angle is the different or the same, or whatever it may be. But at the end of it all, if we can comprehend this well, understand it well, and use it to play the game at a higher level, that is the ultimate goal. Similarly, in this case, yes, we must understand creation, and science had advanced even more than this. So, we are not, none of us, and I think I am definitely not as well versed in these aspects. And I saw one more thing, by the way. Even the doctors, for example, they have their niche expertise. Okay, when I was in the hospital, I could notice that it's practically impossible, and there is no time for a doctor to know everything. So then we go to different experts for different aspects, and they work in team, in consonance as a team with each other, in consonance with each other to deliver the ultimate output, right? So as long as we understand all of this, then we are able to comprehend what is beyond all of this. And we don't need to become an expert in all of this to get to what is beyond all of this. A reasonable level of understanding, we will know, each one of us individually will know. Right? For example, the doctor individually, he knows when to prescribe what. Of course, he has to depend on so many experts where he doesn't have expertise. But he knows what to prescribe when, and we see that the effect is correct. It's right, the result is good, it works. Similarly, our goal is to get enough understanding to be able to reach out to what is beyond. Because the risk of diving too deep into this is we will not then reach out, we won't have time to reach out to what is beyond. One of the things I used to tell my team members and all that was, we don't need to get 100% perfection. 99% is okay as long as we achieve what we set out to achieve. Aiming for 100% perfection, going at it again and again and again, then not achieving is the problem. Thank you, Vasudha, and happy birthday. Vasudha's birthday today. She texted saying she's leaving. Any other thought? Anything else? Okay, I think if there's no other thoughts or comments, we can close for today and resume next Saturday. Okay, thank you all. Hari Om. We'll meet next Saturday.